Good Friday morning, peoples. It is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. All right, I got a video. It's going to go on my Patreon as well, but then over there, I'm going to follow up with some stock recommendations like I normally do, some new ones that I haven't given out, buy metals, etc. So while the video is going out to the YouTube channel in terms of what I see on silver, gold, platinum, palladium. Silver, platinum, and palladium are often referred to as the white metals because they're a lighter colored metal as opposed to the gold color, yellow gold color in gold. And they're all have industrial use in addition, silver, palladium, platinum. But they're important metals nonetheless. So here we go. This is a daily on gold. So what you can see going back to what, April? Well, actually March. So the old saying in the bottom left-hand corner to high up in the right. So obviously gold has been on a bull run. If you go back a year and a half, it's been on a bull run, 2 years. If you really look at gold for the last 25 years, it's outperformed the S&P. Okay. Now there was a decade where it did fantastic, like 2001 to 2011. But then the S&P and the Nasdaq really performed in that next decade, that 2012, 13 up to really the current environment. But then gold started to take off, right? So here we are in this commodity super cycle, kind of a topping for the general indexes due to valuations and so forth. Again, it isn't a straight down, it's more of a topping. And should we melt up like 20 or 30% more, then pretty much everything will melt up. Commodities, gold, metals, stocks of all kind. But then we'll have a bigger crash. That's the problem with continuing to melt up and not retracing and coming back to valuations. These are unheard of. Go look at some of my videos and situation we're in. Well, the old saying is you can go broke trying to short the market, right? You can be wrong. I mean, Warren Buffett's out. He didn't short the market. He just said, I'm not really buying any stocks to speak of for the last 18 months. So there's a pretty smart trader who's not worried. You and I would say, well, geez, look out what we missed out. He's not looking at it like that. When you got billions and billions of dollars invested, then you look at it from a safety perspective, less than, well, I could have made more, right? All right, so let's get into the metals. That's so the line shown here, this is really sort of split. So you had gold going up, it retraced, and so you look for support and resistant pivot marks, right? So that determines how you draw your line. So you have a line here, and you can see when you went up, pull back to it, then you pull pretty significantly above it. And then you turn around in an ABC move and went right back down to touch it intraday, right? And then you worked your way up, not nearly the height you had over here from the line, and pulled back and went below it. Then you tried to get above it, failed, plodded along, stayed pretty close to it, and made a surge again. Touched it. The next day you retraced. And so again, these are daily. So this represents August. Now you've had a move up, down, and now you're pretty far away from that line. You're almost this kind of thing. So again, it's gone up and it's riding with it. So in order to really move up, right, this is around 3,700. If you want to see it fly to 4,000, it really needs to get above this line and then it can really surge. Now, conversely, it can, let me show you. So we move above the line easily to move up big. And even when below the line, the lows, we can roar back up to the resistance line. So we need to climb back above, which is what I was saying. Sorry, guys, I'm telling you, I'm looking at my notes when I wasn't even looking at the notes when I was telling you because I understand this. Okay, so here's the result. Short term, I'm neutral. There's just as much bearish opportunity to retrace a little bit as there is to go up. But midterm, multi-month, I'd say this is 2 to 6 weeks potential. And this is 2 months to 5 years. I'm super bullish. So let's take a look at a further chart where we just extend the trend line. So don't forget that gold can continue higher and remain up against the trend line of resistance, right? So you can just come along and go like this, up and down, right? And you can get to 4,000 without having a big explosive move up. Take the elevator up in this case. Okay. You stair step up and take the elevator down. So again, any scenario, but if we really want to see this thing fly, usually it happens when it's on the other side. Now you can get a break up here, get a pullback, and then take off, right? Very common. So let's look at it dialed in a little bit closer. Okay, smaller time frame on the daily. So you notice here, we got here 3 times, touched it once, touched it twice. And remember, when you knock on the door so many times, you increase the probability. It's around a 50% probability that we go on through this, okay? Again, you could have a 70% probability we're going to go up and it could fail down. Those are what they are, probabilities. None of us can exactly predict the future, but we can use probability. So you notice on the 2-day pullback, we went right to sort of a former line of support. All right. We were here, we were basing, we went up, we had a wick. Actually, this was a topping tail, what's known as a topping tail in candlesticks, right? Because it shot up and pulled back and closed below the previous day. But then it stabilized, made a run up. So once it was up here, this negated the topping tail. Normally, a topping tail says you're going to trend down and go down. So we got up here again. What's acting as resistance? The trend line. So now we've had 2 days. And where did we touch yesterday and then move back up? So if we had another one and went down below and confirmed, then that's kind of bearish. I'll show you some more for the setup, right? So right now, this is targeting around 36.25. But at any point in time, this thing could go up here, come back here. I mean, we could do something like this and stay right in this triangle. But there's a lot of possibilities. Here's sort of zoomed out when we draw some further trend lines. So here's an old top line. So if we break this, first off, very likely we get a gap fill here, and then we touch off the pivot highs. And where is that? That's right around 34.50, 34.60. Okay. So it coincides with a gap fill. So just further technicals to say if this, then that probability. Okay. It's always about probabilities. So that's gold, guys. That's the setup on gold. I'd be real surprised to see gold much below this. Like I said previously in videos, if this were then to come here and break below here, it really opens up like 3,000. And I really wouldn't want to see it go there. But even at 3,000, it's still in a bullish uptrend. It's just not, you're going to get, your miners are going to get beat up. Everybody's going to fret about that, although that would be a great buying opportunity, but would make you nervous. Okay, we don't need that. And honestly, there's too much demand for gold from China, from India, right? From all these other organizations, from the ECB, from the central banks, from the U.S. central bank. We don't know who, but the U.S. has imported probably as much gold in the last 8 months as it has in 20 years. So something is afoot, guys. So let's look at silver. That's the other metal in play. Well, we had kind of the opposite. We draw a trend line back here. How far do we go back? 2023. So how many times did we knock on the door? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we broke out. So the probabilities at like the 7th try get up about 80%. So it's moved up. So now it's above resistance. Let's zoom in on that chart. So the door is open now for upside explosive moves. Okay. But we might need to come back and test. Again, there's no absolute, but it's very common when you break out, you come back and touch. But I've seen breakouts go up like this and then go halfway back and then just run. Or I've seen breakouts in what we call a breakaway gap. It runs up with a line, skips open the next day, and just leaves a gap and goes up and does 4 or 5 of those. That's when, news, when there's just tremendous bullishness. And eventually you may come back through that, but those breakaway gaps like that are unbelievable. That just signals to you this thing is going to run. Okay. So again, we're positive, and if you notice on these, you run along here, and then this is getting pretty stretched away from the trend line. Right? I don't know how far. I don't think I go back much further in this zoom level, but that's a big move to get there. And then we come down and we test it again, right? What was this, fifth or sixth attempt, right? And then we pull back not so far and we get our momentum going. But once we're above this now, we're set up for a big move. It just needs to happen. So when you zoom out, now this is going to the weekly. So now I can go back, I can show you, a 1980 high, and then I show you the 2011 high. Both those were in the 49s, almost $50. All right. So I expect the sort of the final point of resistance, and I mentioned this the other day, is around 44 to 44 and a half. Well, we've touched high 42s. We're in the 42s now. So this thing, if it gets some explosiveness, just could go right to 48, go to 50. And then probably likely you form this cup, right? You already have a massive cup here with a handle, but you could form another cup, trend sideways for a handle, a week, a month, 2 months, and then rip, because there isn't any real resistance above $50. It's not like, well, at 58, it hasn't ever been there, right? But remember, inflation adjusted, name me another big asset going back to 1980 that's cheaper. You don't have it, right? You may have some computer chip or something that, oh, this computer chip is cheaper than that one, 30 years ago, but they're not the same, right? This is the same metal. So it's fantastic that it hasn't gone there, just to tell you how explosive. And now add in a 4-year deficit. Silver is consumed, guys. Gold isn't really consumed, a tiny bit. I want to be fair, right? I've seen gold crowns. I have a gold crown. You see it in some electronics, but remember, it's so expensive, it has to be in something very expensive to have a gold part. And its conductivity for electric is nowhere what copper or silver are, right? And silver has so many healthcare aspects, armament, tomahawk missiles, um, solar panels, massive need in solar panels, electric vehicles. So you're talking about something that we need in the world, almost like it's almost, well, it is. It got added to the critical metals thought process. You won't find many regulatory bottlenecks for silver mining. The only reason that silver has gotten by with its current deficit is recycling. Obviously, we've mined a lot of silver over time, but it's in scrap yards, right? Every mobile phone has a small bit of silver. Well, what if you had 20 million mobile phones that are 10 years old? There's silver in there. So there's all types of recycling today that's done that helps, but it still doesn't give us enough. We're still in a deficit. And if it wasn't for recycling, you'd just have a flat out crisis, right? All right, so let's keep going. Let's look at platinum. Okay, so we covered silver. I mean, I'm as optimistic as I can be. If you haven't heard me on silver, it's just, again, I'm going to put this on YouTube and I'm going to put it on Patreon. I'm now letting my Patreon members know what I think are the best silver miners to buy. So I have dialogues about that. I put lists out. I'm ready to update that list, okay, to keep that going because silver will outperform gold when it starts moving again. Now, silver also at the very, typically at the very end, go look at 78 and 79. Remember, the blow off top happened in January of 1980 for silver. But look at that 79 year. It probably went up 40% of its whole move in the last 14, 16 months. Same thing happened in 2011. We are nowhere near that. Those numbers are probably 120 to 250 type moves. All right. We got a long way. I'd say 72 is probably in the cards for next year. And then could go higher and then 100. There will be 3-digit silver. There's just no way around it. It's too valuable and needed. I mean, we took it out of coins in 1965. So what does that tell you? When you can't mint something and have the value be there. All right, let's look at platinum. Now, platinum and palladium, don't just think cars, guys. Platinum is rarer than gold. Typically and historically, platinum has had higher. Go back to 2008. You had a platinum price much higher than the gold price. It's all, if you talk to jewelers and people, that's what they're familiar with. Well, we haven't had that recently. We got $3,600 gold and we've got $1,400 platinum. Now, did platinum take off and run finally? Yeah. So we ran pretty massively up. I had accumulated a lot of, 3 platinum miners in particular through this base level, just waiting. I mean, I waited 6 months or something before they moved. And now they've moved. I haven't sold here. But honestly, I think there's a potential to pull back to 1200, right? If I follow A, B, C. But there's no guarantee because what you have here, this is a bear flag. Here's your flagpole. Here's your flag. All right. Now, I'd say there's a 35, 40% probability that we could still break out. Once we break out above this former top right here, then it negates this pattern. We no longer have a bear flag. But could it break down? And if it does, we're probably looking here or maybe here, which are fantastic buying opportunities, right? They form the A, B, C retrace. So if this is a 1 up in Fibonacci and this is a leg 2 down, then 3 probably spells out 3,000 or more in terms of its eventual height. And think about that. That percentage wise to gold, probably if it goes to 3,000, gold's probably 4,500 or 5,000. So at some point, it may actually catch up to gold. So platinum's got a long way to run, but short term, I'm watchful. So if you want to get in Patreon, I can tell you what to buy and what to own there. All right. So when we zoom out further, let's look at this platinum. So you see this, right? You see this massive, what are we talking about? From 2021, right? After that COVID run up, then literally into 2025 around March before we broke out. Like I said, I was accumulating here. I've had my positions very long. And guess what? It's very boring when they go up and down. Oh, I'm up a little bit. Oh, I'm even. Oh, I'm down a little bit. I'm up a little. Patience, my friends. Get right and set tight. It's hard, right? When everybody's chasing yield and FOMOing in, to a meme coin or FOMOing into the next AI stock. I mean, do I play a little bit of that? Yeah. But I know what core value is. I know what commodity super cycles are like. So this is nothing but a bull flag up, and you got to retrace, and it well could be an A, B, C, or again, we just go on and break out of this. So just be aware of that. So again, so a retrace to 1200 or in that range correct my typo, would be a buy signal for me. So again, I mentioned in my Patreon, I'll give you some miners that I own, some more that I'm looking at. So Wave 3 and Platinum could take us to 3,000 or even higher. All right, so Palladium next, another industrial metal. Now, I know what some of you are going to say, and I don't buy it wholeheartedly, that this is all about, you know, ICEs, internal combustion engines. And no, we're going electric on. Yeah, there's some platinum use there. It switches between palladium and platinum. But increasingly, warfare and many other things as the world heats up and, conflict attitudes, palladium is utilized in a lot of industries now, right? And there's getting to be a shortage of palladium just like there's a shortage of silver. And platinum easily can go into shortage because it's just really rare to have it. So let's zoom out a little. So what you have is something where it's above the line and now it's below the line, but I think we can do a better job on showing you this. So here's platinum just going back into, 2021. So what did we have? We had this big spike, right? But if I draw a particular trend line and I catch some pivot points, a low pivot, a low pivot, a resistance, another resistance. Now, what have we done? We've broken out, right? This failed. This popped above and went back underneath. That's why you have to have confirmation and multiple days of trading above the line. I mean, this held on, right? Came down, hit the line, held on, but it was not to be, right? Went down, came back, went down, worked its way back up. So we've just about had one touch, two touches, and then we went above. Again, it just, um, but let's zoom in on that. Now we're zooming in on just this phase, right? And we're saying, well, what's it done? Gone back above, but that was a fake out, right? Not a real breakout. Came back down, gathered momentum, went above it, came back and tested it, went up, came back and tested it, went up. Now, this likely is not, could we retest this? Absolutely. My gut says we may not, right? And then we start up. So, how far and how high do I think that uh, palladium can go? Just near term off of this, I think about 1800. So, and where do I get that? I just draw some, I take this support line, come across here, just look at some resistance levels here, some base levels, Fibonacci numbers. Now, this thing can go multiple times higher over the commodity super cycle, but at least getting to 1800. If it got there and I own some miners, I may trim. I wouldn't close the positions out because we could get a 30% pullback on that and then move up higher. All right, guys. So that's what I got you on the metals. I like to keep these going. I'm trying to educate new people in YouTube, but just to show you how early we are in this market, most people don't look at these miners and are clueless. They're not interested in watching the videos. They want to know who's yielding 90%. But they don't say who's stable, which fund is stable, which fund has a total return of 100%. Well, there isn't any anymore. Even the one that was there for 18 months is not there anymore. So that's the problem. Think about this. If you're only targeting an income fund, generally the best that income fund can do is travel 30 to 50% of the underlying stock. So yeah, you want income, but what happens when that thing runs 300%? Then you ran 100%, okay, and you collected good income. But guess what happens when it decides to retrace 75% of that 300% move? And you're holding that income stock because it's been really good to you. You're way underwater. You may end up in a 3-year basis of saying, I got 3%. You'd have been better off in treasury. If you don't believe me, go look at the Tesla chart. Tesla was one of those early companies that went from $100 to 400 back to 100. So it was good income when it went to 300. Well, Yomax launched, or I think, sorry, it went from 100 to 500, 80 to 500, I think. So it was massively up. And then when it got back to about 350 or so, they launched Tesla. And then it proceeded to go down. It was the first stock to do a reverse split. So while it paid good income, and then when it roared back to 400 again, Yomax was capturing 33%. So people that held it 2.5 years, everybody always brags about, hey, I had Misty and, I collected all the money in 9 months and I'm holding it. Well, it looks like maybe it's woken up yesterday in MicroStrategy, but otherwise I'd say, why are you in Misty now? There's a lot better yielding and NAV maintaining funds available. But maybe Misty's going to come back, okay? Tesla didn't, and I'm bullish Tesla now, but I won't be in Yomax. I want to go over to Roundhill where every week I can see what they're paying me and I can look at the technicals and I can get in and get out much quicker. I don't want to wait a month and find out they should have paid $1.20, but they're only paying 40 cents. It's a waste of my time and money being in a fund like that. I don't buy into that. So sorry guys, I tried to tie it back because again, a lot of you guys watching my channel, and that's where I started, got on income. But the smart ones are over in Patreon now. They're making money. They understand that. They're asking me questions like, well, what mining fund can I get into that pays me well, pays me income? People need money. I get it. All right, guys, that's my rant. I'm done. I owe a uranium. That is next, guys. Uranium's been hot, but go look at the chart. It was hot, then it was really cold. Now it's hot again, which is a classic, up one, retrace 75, 80%, and now it's flying back up. Well, guess what? You want to talk about timing? Here's a little education for you. So, Defiance, you guys know Defiance and interviewed Sylvia, super nice lady. Jay does their options, Jay of Zega, right? The same Yomax Jay that he does the options for Defiance. They had a fund year and a half ago, URAX. Anybody remember that one? I did. I never bought any, but I was bullish on uranium, but uranium had just started down. So I'm like, I'm not going to buy a 2X because it's not showing me it wants to go up right now. Well, about 3 months ago, right, I saw uranium woke up and it started moving. I said, oh, let me check URAX. They closed the fund. Of course they did. They launched it at the absolute worst time that you could launch a 2X fund. So no wonder it closed. People were getting killed, right? It'd be just like the NASDAQ is ready to go down. I'm making this up. The NASDAQ's ready to go down 50%. And you guys are all buying Q Diddy and, from Defiance, and you're buying it from Yomax, and you're buying it from Roundhill, and it's about to get destroyed. So your NAV is just going to get chewed up, and what little income you get isn't going to make up for that. So it's all about buying the right fund, but not exactly having to time it, but being in bull markets. So sometimes when somebody launches a fund, it's not a good time, right? I saw gaming, GME. There it is in Yomax, right? Is that a sign of the times? Could be. May crash hard. Maybe it's got some room to run. I don't know. I'm not playing it, not interested in it. All right, guys. That I said no more rants, and I ranted on that. But I just want you to know, just because something's launched doesn't mean the timing is good. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. All right, guys. Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. Have a great one. Bye for now. Oh, I've got to get Granite shares. Get that out to you guys, and I got to get this uranium out. All right. Bye for now.